Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. We're going to get started in today's training, and we're going to be talking about contract vehicles. Let me just close off these captions that are running. And I wanted to share a quick tip for those of you showing up early and on time, engaging in chat. I appreciate it. Here's my tip for you this morning is just a thank you for showing up early and on time. It's to share your capability statement on LinkedIn. It's 2024. Laura from Capital Group just shared it out there and tagged me just saying, hey, here's my capability statement, not asking me to do anything with it. But I noticed her put it out there and I liked it. And I think it's a good idea because the capability statement is designed to let people know who you are. So don't keep it to yourself. Get it out there. Just post it into LinkedIn. You can go into LinkedIn and at the top of your feed, you can add a new post. When you click in there, it allows you to choose to upload a document. You can upload a PDF. That way, if somebody likes it, they can download it, right? Don't keep the capability statement to yourself. So that's my tip of the day. Get it out there. It's 2024. In fact, there's nothing wrong with you once a month posting your capability statement out there. Hey, just want to let people know we do this, 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 this. I might write a whole different post on, a framework you can put. But for the moment, if you just put your capability statement out there, it'll come up in people's LinkedIn feeds. It'll start getting some visibility for you. So that's my tip of the day as we get started. Let me just make sure I got my slides all good to go. And I think in a minute, I'll probably just go off camera and go full on slides today. But I wanted to talk about contract vehicles. And today's topic, it's at an easy level. I really want to just help people understand some of the most common terms that are out there. When I ran my businesses and I used to go into meetings, especially with larges, I'd go into meetings and I'd feel really embarrassed when they would ask. It's like, oh, have you heard of this contract vehicle? Or have you heard of that one? I'm like, no, I haven't heard of it. It's like, and I used to feel like, oh, I was, like my authority level was dropped because I didn't know that name they were throwing at me. But it wasn't until I sold my last company and I started doing this job that I do now full time, which is teaching, that I realized there's hundreds of thousands of contract vehicles out there. It's impossible for me to know them all. And there's vehicles that are in different agencies or in different spaces. And so, as I went forward, I realized I just can't possibly know them all. And so I just want to be able to have a good understanding, and I want to know my agency's top vehicles. But other than that, I'm not going to try to memorize all the names. The other thing I want you to remember, as you think about contract vehicles in particular, is that contract vehicles are not a hunting license. I've heard this said in the past when I was coming up through my companies. They said, oh, it's a hunting license. What you got it? You can go out and hunt down contracts. That's not really true because hunting, you basically sit still and wait for the prey to walk by and it's happen, right? And farming, though, requires you to do a lot of this prep work and then you reap the rewards at the end. That's what a contract vehicle really is enabling you is to farm. You still have to go out there and sell, etc. So let's go ahead and get started on today's things. You know what I think it is? And I'm going to get an AV check from everybody. Just let me know on the AV check. But I think the reason we lost sound is because I went off camera. And I didn't know that I can't be off camera and off sound. So let me know. Just let me know if you're seeing that. Getting sound. I apologize for this little hiccup. 400 videos in a row. This is like the third time I think we had it before. I'm just watching to see if I get some sound check back from somebody. It usually takes about a minute. Sound is up. It's back. It's back. Perfect. Okay. So let me switch back to my slides and we'll get rocking and rolling on contract vehicles made easy. By the way, one of the things I did say is that my agenda screwed up. I forgot to get it done. Busy morning. But today we're going to be talking about contract vehicles and diving into this. And I'm going to follow down on 3 main agenda items. I'm going to talk about the 10 common goods that the government buys. And I'm just checking my chat. Good. Thanks, everybody, for getting back to me. The federal government, all federal agencies buy 10 common goods. So I want to talk to you about those, understanding those, and then understanding the spend under management, or how how contract vehicles are organized and what the government's trying to do with them is a good way to understand what the government buys and how they buy before I go into bullet number 3 there, which is talking about typical contract vehicles that are out there. So we're going to dive into that. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow the process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results, and that's what I want for you to have. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're following me on LinkedIn. Make sure you're subscribed to my newsletter, Government Contracting Success. This newsletter is where we put out a lot of information. For example, just this morning, I posted the capability briefing deck template that we have and some guidance on it and a replay of the video training. And so I put that as an article or an issue in the newsletter. So make sure you're subscribed to that. And also coming out of today's training, I'll do another article. I'll probably do this next week, but I'll do it with a lot more information about contract vehicles, et cetera. And I'll put it into this newsletter so that you have access to it. So make sure you subscribe to that. I want to thank everybody for registering for training. If that was you, thank you. As we go forward, always make sure you register. It's an easy thank you to us when you register. And then the other thing is LinkedIn will let other people know that we exist, we're out there, and we're putting on this training. And the last thing is never come alone. If you can invite somebody else on your team, invite them. People will benefit from the training. And it's always good when you have somebody to go, hey, did you hear what Neil was saying here? What do you think about that? We should do this, this, this. And we get a lot of people doing that. Okay, so I'm going to dive down in the 10 common goods. And these are this is what the government buys, right? These are no particular order. I think I might have even put it alphabetically, but they buy facilities and construction services, right? What I want you to be thinking about is, where do you fit into this mix? And I'm going to go to another slide with it. Human capital, think HR, industrial products and services, information technology, medical products, services, et cetera. Office management, you might think furniture's in here as well. Professional services, and this covers a huge bulk that is not IT inside of an office. Security and protection, transportation logistics, and travel and lodging. These 10 common goods are what the government buys across all agencies, including the Defense Department. In the Defense Department, there's a certain set of, there's 9 more categories that they buy under that are specific to the DoD's needs. But these are called common goods. These are common across all federal agencies. And what I teach people is that you want to pay attention to, where do you fit? The reason this is important for today's training is because if you fit in the, let's say number 5, you're doing something on the medical side, that's your core competency. Well, then you would want to go find out, what are the best in class contract vehicles in the medical side? What are the typical contract vehicles at whatever level playing into the medical products and services side? When you can figure out the common good categories the government has, it allows you to start following a rabbit hole of research to know which contract vehicles you'll want to be on. A while ago, I did this, and for the most part, this is still a good slide, but I want to update it. But I wanted to show you the same information, just put a little different. And I understand that This is really small text, and this is what I meant. If you subscribe to the newsletter right here on LinkedIn, right? So it's free, it's no big deal. But if you subscribe to the newsletter, I'll do an updated version of this handout, and I'll make sure this handout is available in the newsletter as a download PDF, so you can print it, put it on your wall, or share it with people and say, hey, this is us. But what I wanted you to just see is like, here's the federal government category management reference sheet for the common goods and services agencies buy. And I've got it grouped on gray, all agencies, and then blue, the extra 9 that DoD has. And so if you just look at human capital as an example and think about, like, is this where I belong? Human capital, underneath it, they break it down kind of further so that people can understand what's in this category of this group. It's compensation and benefits, employee relations, human capital evaluation, strategy, policies, and ops planning, talent acquisition, talent development. I have a customer who does EEO, equal opportunity employment, or equal opportunity employment. But they focus on basically fairness in the workforce. And as they look around, it clearly falls right under human capital. And so if they're then trying to move forward, they could go into human capital, into the category management side of the house. By the way, you can go learn a lot more on gsa.gov. That's where you should go to dig deep into this. But for my customer, they could dig down through the human capital category or common good to find more and more information, beginning to see the contract vehicles that matter. And then the same thing down below on DoD, right? You can look and see where might you fit if you're doing, like I had mentioned, Laura posted her capability statement. And when I looked at it, I can see that it's got additive manufacturing, 3D printing, et cetera. And I might look down here and see equipment related services, right? That might be an area that she fits under. And in there, I can look at, maintenance and repair and overhaul, equipment modification. Is that a space? Well, I would be recommending to her, look in there and go, could you see yourself fitting into any of these areas? If you can, then you want to, we call this following a rabbit hole, right? Research is go down that path and dig further into that information. So these are the 10 common goods bought by all agencies, and then the 9 extra ones. By the way, the 9 extra ones, if you're not looking at my screen, for defense, it's specifically aircraft, ships, subs, and LCVs, which I can't remember what those were, something low vehicle. But weapons and ammo, electronics and communication equipment, sustainment services, clothing, textile, and substance. So all the uniforms, all that stuff you can think of coming out of DLA, electronic communication services, equipment-related services that I was just talking about, research and development, huge portion of that, right, in the DoD side, and then miscellaneous things that are not non-food items and other information or other products and purchases that are classified. You want to dig more into this, right? I'm not trying to give you a ton of information. What I'm trying to do is expose you to the common goods in the way that the government categories what they buy. I like that they do category management. They're managing what they buy. If I sell a good product and it's a value, then I don't mind that they're trying to be a smart buyer. I want there to be fair playing field, but I'm okay with them grouping it this way because it actually helps me understand where does my company fit. And so, again, just watch when I do this handout. You can actually put handout in the chat. And if I see enough people doing that, I might actually put that newsletter article out faster. Okay, so let's talk about the category contract vehicle tiers. And I didn't really mean to have all this animated, but this idea in the government is there's these 3 tiers. And basically the reason the government is doing like category management, spend under management, this way of thinking this, they're just trying to get a handle of how they spend, because they spend horribly. If you're old enough, you heard stories about golden toilets or golden hammers or like a $5,000 hammer, all this kind of activity, right? And what the government is really trying to do is to make smart decisions. So smart decision making in their purchasing. One example, and I have 2 examples actually. One example that the government talks about is they'll have multiple contract vehicles, or in this agency, the price of something will be different, radically different. The price of a computer over here is $800 and over here it's $2,000, but it's the exact same product. It just, the seller just negotiated stuff. And so for the buyer's perspective, the government's perspective, and think as a taxpayer for 1 second, That's a bad deal. They should be trying to get the best deal. Maybe increase the lowest price, decrease the highest price, but basically they're trying to find a balance. I'll give you a specific example. I had a contract with the VA, and I was helping hospitals everywhere, and I would build solutions, many application solutions to help really improve the operations in a hospital. I mean, not literally operations, but the running of a hospital. I would build these applications, and an application might cost a hospital $100,000 or $200,000 for these quick applications we would build. And I would literally try to give it away to other hospitals and say, hey, can we just roll it out? Maybe $10,000, $20,000 fee. No, they wouldn't do that. But I could go around and sell it to them for twice the exact same price. So instead of them maximizing our reusability, et cetera, my point is this spend under management, it's not a bad thing. It's the government getting their act together. They're still going to spend $500 billion to $1 trillion every year, right? The average of $700 billion right now. They're never going to stop spending. No politician will ever stop that, right? But it's how they spend, and we want them to be more efficient because really it helps us in the end anyways. Okay, so let's talk about these 4 tiers of contract vehicles. Contract vehicles can fall under 4 tiers. Tier 0, these do not follow any spend under management practice, right? These are rogue contract vehicles that are out there. And then you have 3 tiers that are spend under management where they're making smart decisions. Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. So Tier 1 are used within an agency. They're agency-wide contract vehicles. So the example is like the Navy or DHS or somebody might create a contract vehicle specifically for use within their agency, but it's a mandatory one. And so it's trying to follow these guidelines, these principles of spend under management. Just making wise decisions on what they buy. Tier 2 are similar type vehicles, but now they can be used multiple agencies. And then the last one is, and so a GWAC might, for example, fall under Tier 2, right? It can be used across all agencies or something. But this idea of Tier 1 is limited to an agency, Tier 2 can be multiple agencies, and Tier 3 are best in class. And these are ones I want you to go research on your own. I'll touch maybe a little bit on it, but these best in class contract vehicles, remember the common goods, we have contract vehicles in all the common goods. And so you want to find which ones are in there because that's where the government's trying to spend the most amount of money. Best in class is where the government is mandating agencies try to push more and more of their dollars to. And right now, there's only 39 of them. Remember, I said there's thousands of contract vehicles, but there's only 39 of these best in class contract vehicles. And it's important for you to be paying attention to which ones those are, because those are the ones the buyers constantly keep looking to, going, should I get over there? Should I get on it? Here's another way of looking at those 4 tiers, and I just put it in a little diagram, but you can see it, how small the Tier 3 is. In fact, that Tier 3, I just made it big enough for the words Tier 3, but it's much, much, much smaller. But as you move out, right, multi-agency, Tier 1 is single agency, and then you've got this red outer circle, what I call the Wild West of government contracting. But these are unmanaged contracts. They're just out there, and whether on purpose or just by omission, they're not following any spend under management principles or the principles around category management, et cetera. And so, or the best in class principles. And so there's a ton of those out there. It's hard for anybody to know any name. And so you'll see me say this again in a minute, but you want to talk to the government buyer that you work with and find out which contract vehicles they use. Okay, so let me just talk about contract vehicle types here. There's a couple of contracting types you want to pay attention to, but basically contract vehicles can come down in 2 ways: as a single award or a multiple award contract. I got a customer who won a $150 million, $175 million single award IDIQ. And I'll talk about that in a second, but basically it's a single award contract just to them. And the beauty for them is basically all that money was going to be spent through task orders that are on that vehicle. The other type are multiple awards. And so you can think about 8A Stars 3, for example. It has over 1,000 contract holders. That's what we call you when you win a contract, right? A contract holder. And so there's over 1,000 on that. Seaport Next Gen, I think, has over 2,000. Seaport Next Gen is a Navy contract vehicle that has over 2,000 contract holders. So those are multiple award contract holders. There's nothing special about it, but you hear us say MAC. And if you've never heard it before and somebody says, oh, it's a MAC, you're like, what the heck's a MAC? it just means multiple people awarded. So you can see that in construction and services, et cetera. So here, I'm just going to give you a few contract vehicle types that are out there that you could pay attention to. And these aren't in any particular order. I just put them in. So the first one is a blanket purchase agreement. We call it a BPA. So usually you hear people say BPA this, BPA that. It tends to be low dollar buys and it's repeating. So I have multiple customers with these BPAs, and the idea is to just get in and keep trying to get engagements with the customer to use that BPA. What I like to do when I have BPAs is to get them to expand it so other buyers can use it, right? But you have this vehicle people can use. The next one is called a basic ordering agreement. The next one there is called an indefinite delivery, and this is, I think, one of the most common ones you'll hear about as a separate vehicle than the next one. But IDIQs, right? Indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. And the idea is that the government is giving this long period, 5, usually 10-year periods of performance, right? So the government has 10 years to buy off this contract vehicle. You can think of STARS 3 that I mentioned a minute ago. That's an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity IDIQ that allows them to buy, I think the ceiling, I can't remember, but I think it's like $50 billion in IT purchases. And it's like an 8-year period of performance, meaning the government can buy off of it all the way through those 8 years. So it's a long period of time, and the buys, it varies around. The next one is one of the most common ones we hear about. Hey, did you get on the GSA schedule? Are you on the GSA schedule? You'll hear people say now MAS. You'll often hear people talk about hack sin or this sin or that sin. These are all just various ways of saying the GSA schedule or the MAS. And so there, it's the key about this is these are pre-negotiated prices. And so when somebody goes, and I'm not a GSA schedule expert, right? I don't want to pretend. There's a lot of people that all they do is get you on these vehicles. But the idea is you're writing a proposal to GSA. They're negotiating those prices, labor categories or product prices, et cetera. They're negotiating it with you. And when you guys come to an agreement, you get the vehicle, you get the GSA schedule, right? And so these are pre-negotiated prices on behalf of the government. They're trying to get a better deal than you offer anybody else. That way, when somebody in the government wants to use that vehicle, the prices they know have already been negotiated by GSA, and they can trust that you're giving them good prices. So that's the idea behind it. You can think commercial products and services. The last thing I was just going to mention here that you would hear people talk about is a GWAC, or government-wide acquisition contract. And generally it's IT, but it's where they're really trying to get a handle on doing IT right. IT is probably one of the biggest violations of the government wasting money, because it's bad enough they pay $500 for a hammer, but at least they have a hammer. But the government literally has wasted billions and billions of dollars on IT projects because they're mismanaged or they operate kind of in these silos. And this idea of getting IT purchases to be done a lot more cooperatively, maybe not fully integrated, but hey, let's all talk to each other around the federal government. The idea is to start doing IT right, because IT is one of the biggest purchases the government does that can lead to failure, right? Spending $1 billion and then going out, that project, we're gonna have to throw it away. When I started the GovCon Chamber back in 2018, that's one of the first things we did was put out, stop saying small businesses are risky. If we fail, you lose $1 million here, $1 million there. But when the largest fail, you lose $5 million or $5 billion here, $5 billion there. And so we did this whole article about, look at all these failed projects that cost billions of dollars just gone, but they were led by large businesses. Stop acting like smalls are risky. Larges are risky. Smalls are flexible and nimble. Okay, so here's what I want you to remember from today's training. As you go forward, first thing about contract vehicles, right? You got the basics of it. Go find out what your buyer uses. Just literally ask them, hey, I want to work with you going forward in the future. What's the top 3, top 5, top 10 contract vehicles you use? More important, you can say, hey, we do IT services. What are the top 3 or 4 contract vehicles you use? If you can ask them, that's great, because you always get it right from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But you can also go to FPDS, right? If you go into fpds.gov, you can find this information. Narrow your search down by the agency and then look at the contract vehicles that they're tracking on. You can also do this in a little bit more friendly way by looking at usaspending.gov. When you go in there and you search, just search on the agency you're going after, and it'll show you a lot of the top vehicles that are in there. The second thing I want to recommend you do, obviously, is when you find the vehicles your buyers, your target buyers, not everybody, but your target buyers are using, then get on those contract vehicles. It's okay if the vehicle's already awarded, it's a couple of years in, like I mentioned, GSA Stars 3 or Seaport Next Gen. You can go in, talk to somebody, get on their team as a sub, and you can participate in that vehicle. You can participate in the task orders that come out on that vehicle. And the last one is, remember this, as you go forward with contract vehicles, sometimes we think contract vehicles are money. They are not any money, no money, zero money. Contract vehicles are this license to farm, not hunt. It means that you can start doing the work that will lead to money or lead to the crops at the end. And when you do that right effort, you're going to have the success at the end. So the contract vehicle, think of it as just the start of your journey, not the end of your journey towards pursuing task order wins, etc. So hopefully that makes sense. By the way, if you want me to do that article faster, if you want to copy that handout, just let me know in the chat and I'll track on that and let you know when we get that article written. And for all of us, as you go through the rest of your day, just remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.